Welcome back, all the betters in all the lands. I'm flying solo today. Brandon decided that he was going to go win a fight after a 3.5 year layoff and then take off to Austria, which I don't even know why he's in Austria or what he's doing in Austria. Or I couldn't even tell you where Austria is on a map, but Brandon is there right now doing whatever Brandon does in Austria. So you guys have me here today. And actually, a lot of you guys have been watching the show for a long time, with Brandon, with his layoff. A lot of you don't know that if you ever see him, his hand is kind of curled up, and he had a neurological issue. Actually, in one of his last fights, like 4 years ago, he was spiked on his head, and got the rear naked choke. But in doing so, kind of tweaked his neck. That's what he thought. And little by little, he started using or losing the use of his right hand, and his fingers started to curl up, and he just couldn't do stuff. And so he spent years trying to figure that out. And a bunch of neurologists told him it was, all these autoimmune diseases, and that he was having early onset Parkinson's, and that he was having a million other ailments. And he had infusion treatments and these like the crazy amount of like medical treatments. And he finally went to a doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, basically severed a nerve in your neck. You never treated it, so it died. You'll never have use of your hand the way that you used to, but it's fine. It's not going to get worse. So he was like, all right, well, I'm going to start fighting again. So anyway, he had to fight this last weekend. He won by decision against a really tough 5-0 kid. And if you guys saw the fight, I don't even know if it was aired anywhere. All of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, you see him doing in the fight. I mean, he lost the first round. A kid came out like a bat out of hell, took him down, was kind of throwing. Brandon had a little ring rust. Second round, the kid came out pretty hot too. Brandon took him down. Brandon controlled him. Brandon took his back. All of the right stuff. And then the third round, again, the kid came out just boom, blast double. Brandon took him right down, and Brandon was fighting for a choke a little bit, didn't get it, didn't keep fighting for the choke, got back up, got on top, got the kids back for most of the round. Ground and pounded, fought for the choke, won a decision in the kid's hometown. So looks pretty good there. And on a betting side, I told you guys last week, I don't think Brandon agreed with me, but I said this was a landmine of fights. It was kind of one we saw a few weeks ago, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. And so this last one I thought was very similar. It was very crazy. A lot of people lost a lot. But everyone on our Patreon did really well on, the Patreon and the Discord. I went 6 out of 8 for my picks. I post those. I'll post them up here in a second so you guys can see exactly, a screenshot of it. But I had Kakramana for the win. He was a dog. Onama for the win. Inside the distance. It was a hobby for the win. Said for the win. And then I lost on Vanderay for the win. That's my own fault. I always say don't bet on bad fighters. I thought if Vanderay had just sneezed and taken Chase down once, he would have won, and he just didn't even try, not a single time. So that was on me. The other ones I had was Brundage and Gore over 1.5, which I lost on. Casey Antonina over 1.5, easy one there, and then Fiziev RDA over 1.5 or over 2.5. So. A lot of people bet those dogs that I threw up on the Patreon and did really well. Hopefully you guys did. Hopefully you guys made some money. I love seeing you guys make money. In this card coming up today is one of those cards as well. Not the whole thing. There's a couple spots I like here, but a lot of it is just kind of some weird fights as well. So I've been doing a little bit less picks on the Patreon, in the Discord, but just trying to get the better picks. And I actually had 3 weeks or 3 out of 4 weeks where I went 12 for 12 on my picks, on the Patreon. So I was doing really well there. Then we had that weird bad week. I think it was like 7 out of 9 or, something like that, 7 out of 10. And then, doing pretty well since. So you guys check out the Patreon in the show notes. And of course, with the Patreon, it's $25 a month. You get all of our picks. You get all of the regional stuff, all of our picks for the UFC stuff. And then, of course, you get access to our Discord community where we're on doing dumb stuff, chatting, doing all the fun stuff. And then also, please check out if you guys haven't ordered my memoir already. It's on Amazon. It's also in the show notes right there. Talk about growing up, fighting, all that good stuff for 10 years in the old times. So, how it used to be back in my day when I walked to school and uphill both to and from school in the snow, in the rain, in the sleet. So check my memoir out as well. And this week without Brandon, I'm going to do something a little bit different just because, um, I didn't have time to do as much film study as I usually do, and Brandon will watch some of the fights that I don't watch. I'm not going to talk about all of the fights here. I will talk about most of them. I think the women's fights I'm going to skip. Maybe one or two of the guys' fights I'm going to gloss over, a little bit, and then I'm going to just put a little bit more stuff on the Discord and Patreon. Not because I'm trying to be cheap or cheesy or get you guys over there. I just don't have a ton of time this week and last week, and then we're preparing to get Jonathan Pierce, over to London next week. He is fighting Makwan Americani, so I'm getting ready to go over there. So I just have a lot of stuff I have to do to get ready and get some other guys who have fights ready before I take off to London. So I'm gonna skim through some of these, give you guys a little bit. I'll definitely put my my actual picks up on the Patreon. I don't know if Brandon will. I think he will be able to. I don't know if they have internet in Austria. Is it like a fourth world country in the middle of Antarctic, or something like that? I don't know what he's up to. I don't know where he's at. He could be in a field with a bunch of lambs for all I know. And unfortunately, I've got to do this on my own. It worse than anything is I got to pronounce all these damn names. The first fight of the night, moving on to it, just getting going. Like I said, I'm going to kind of fly through all this stuff. That I'm going to talk about is Dwight Grant and Dustin Stoltzfus. Just really quickly here, I'm skipping the first fight. Let me see. I'm pulling up everything for you guys. The odds on this, Dwight Grant is -150 and Dustin Stoltzfus is +121. This is one of those fights. I don't even know where to go with this. Stoltzfus is 13-4. Tapology has this being contested at middleweight, which is kind of strange. I'm curious why Dwight Grant is going up, weight class here. I'm going to make sure it hasn't changed. Dwight Grant. Yeah, it says 185, freaking 185. And he's not a huge 70-pounder. I almost think he might be able to make 155. But you have Dwight Grant. He is 11-5. He's 37 years old. I think since Brandon and I have started this podcast, we have probably gone through 2 or 3 Grant fights. And I think we've, picked him to lose. But no, I picked him to beat Sergey, and he ended up losing. I think he's going to lose this one as well. He's so unorthodox. He's so wild. He's so weird. But he actually really does hit. He has a really good, I don't even know if you want to call it a left hook or just a left overhand looper. Same with the right one as well. Moves back, has this really choppy hand stance, and it's really an awkward, movement. Looks like he has Parkinson's. And then he just wings these hard shots, but he does get clipped a lot. We don't see people wrestle him a lot. And I think Stoltzfus is probably going to wrestle him quite a bit right off the bat. Stoltzfus does not have great stand-up. We saw him take down Meerschaert quite a bit. Did a lot of really good jiu-jitsu in that Meerschaert fight. And then he ended up getting caught in the 3rd round. I mean, all he had to do was not lose, not get submitted. And I think he was on his way to beating that. He did not look overly impressive in the Rodolfo Vieira fight, but that's Rodolfo Vieira. And then when he's fighting guys like Kyle Dawkins, lost a decision. Rodolfo Vieira and Joe Meerschaert, say what you want about him. I mean, he gets beat up quite a bit, but he finds a way to win. And then you have Dwight Grant on the other side, losing to Trinaldo, where there's no real harm, no foul in that. Sergey, Kendozko, if that's how you say that, is coming off like a 7-year layoff. I wouldn't bet this. This is one of those I probably wouldn't bet, but if you are dying to bet it, Dwight Grant is -150. Dustin Stoltzfus is +121. I don't think it goes the distance, and gun to my head, I think I would pick Stoltzfus, to win that one, whether you want to actually bet it or not. Next up, we have Dustin Jacoby and Da-Un Jung. And man, these are actually 2 really good fighters who really do a lot. It's not one of those -200 type of, well, actually, let me see the odds really quickly on it for you guys. We've got Jacoby -125 and Da-Un Jung +105. Yeah, I was going to say it's not one of those -200 lines where you clearly have A side fighter, but then that B side fighter is very dangerous. We saw that in the Roman Dolidze fight with Dawkins, and we saw it most recently with Michael Johnson and Jamie Malarkey. That was one of those ones I said stay away from, because Michael Johnson is way better than people think he is, and Malarkey really hasn't beaten the level of competition that I think people give him credit for. Malarkey won that fight, but I mean, that was pretty controversial. A lot of people think Michael Johnson won it. And so it's one of those where I was just like, I'm not touching this. You kind of assume Malarkey was going to win, but Michael Johnson looked really good. And there's so many fights to bet. Like, why bet those type of fights? And people are, in the comments, people are, I'm betting this fight just like I bet Gamrot last week. Well, Gamrot won and Michael Johnson lost. So if you do things like that, you end up with 50-50 coin tosses. And I'm like, nope, I'd rather do way better odds than that than take fights that, the bad guy could win or the good guy could lose. But we've got Jacoby, 17-5, beat Michael Olashusik. I don't know if you say that. That was and he is solid, man. He finished Darren Stewart, where Darren Stewart is, he's for as many times as he loses and for his bad stuff, bad decisions that he makes, he's actually very tough and he's hard to finish. He beat a big Maxim Grishin, which was a very close fight. And Dan Jung, he's 15-2. He beat Kennedy and Chukwi and Will Knight. He's done quite a bit. He's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 fights in the UFC, wins, and then that weird draw with Sam Alvey. And he is just, he's big, he's tall. He just isn't overly active. His head is always right on center line, and he just gets hit with stuff that if he had any sort of head movement, he probably wouldn't get hit by. We saw it with Will Knight. I mean, you'd consider Jung a striker, but man, that over-under body lock that he got on Knight again and again and again and again was really impressive. I'm actually surprised we don't see him wrestle more. He does a lot of the right stuff. He's long. He has a really good 1-2, a really good straight right down the middle. But again, his head is always there, and he likes to get hit. His low volume is an issue. I think Jacoby, I like Jacoby here. And you guys know I've been critical of Jacoby in the past, and a lot of guys from the Factory X gym in the past, not because they're not good fighters. It's just two things. They generally don't have a lot of wrestling background, and they will generally favor their jiu-jitsu over the wrestling and getting back up. And just in MMA these days, unless you're a Charles Oliveira or a Damian Maia, somebody who is just finishing everybody, I just think that gets you in too much trouble. The risk isn't worth the reward. And then just kind of that pitter-pat open style of striking, which is very effective for them. I wish they would just tighten it up a little bit. Not everyone over there, just the guys that we have talked about on the podcast. So, that said, I think Jacoby wins this. I think his cage wrestling is good. I think he makes the right decisions. He doesn't, when he gets taken down, he doesn't resort to jiu-jitsu. He gets back up to his feet. He turns, he goes. We didn't really see him kick much in his last fight. I don't know if there's something wrong with him, if anything ended up being wrong. But he is a good kicker. He's fought in glory. He has kickboxing background. He's got a good chin. He's got good volume. He reads stuff well. I think Jacoby is and again, more than anything, is he makes good decisions, and he just has a high enough volume count that I like Jacoby here. Like I said, he's a slight favorite, but at -125, if you like him, I think he's a good bet. I think he's a solid fighter. And Jacoby, I think go for it. He is a little bit older though. Let me see how old he is now. And that always scares me just a little bit, but he's 17-5. He's 34. Hasn't hit that 35-year threshold yet, which I think is a big one. But, I think he's a solid play here, solid fighter. And again, I always want to pick two, if you have two good guys, I like picking. If you have two bad guys, I don't like picking. And we have a lot of really good guys on this card, or good fighters, close fighters. Next up, we have Bill Algeo, and we have Herbert Burns. And man, Algeo is 15-6. Let's see. He is a couple here in the UFC. He's 2-2. Lost to Ricardo Ramos and Ricardo Lamas and beat Spike Carlisle and Yo Anderson Brito. And Carlisle is an ape, man. We know, like, that guy comes out full go, 110%, and then is done. So you got to weather that first storm, and then you're done. And then you have Brito, who's a bit of an ape too, in the sense where he's kind of there and going, a little less of an ape than Carlisle, but definitely not a overly tactical, intelligent fighter that you tend to see at the higher level of the divisions. And none of his fights have gone to or have been stopped inside the distance. All he's got 2 wins by decision, 2 losses by decision. We're there. Other side of that, we have Herbert Burns, the other Burns. He's 11-3. He's a little older as well. He's 34. They have him listed at 5'9" with 74-inch reach. And, this dude is, he's lost to Movlid Kabalayov, who we've seen in the PFL just annihilating people. He lost to Magomed Idrisov, both by decision. And he lost to Daniel Pineda by elbows and, via crucifix. But, man, if you guys knew how good Pineda is, like, he's really solid. Pineda just had he just lost, went to a draw with David Ramos in a grappling match, and Grant Dawson as well in another grappling match. He's solid. His wrestling is good. I think he's a much better grappler than people give him credit for. Now, getting back to Burns, he does a lot of the stuff wrong. This is one of those risky fights. People ask me, I put it out early on the Patreon. I said, I like Burns here. He's at plus money. He is at plus 170. All right, man. Algeo is minus 210. And Algeo does a lot of the right stuff, man. His movement is good. He has that low guard, lateral movement left and right. He gets back up to his feet. He has cardio for days, all of the stuff that we talk about that we like. Burns, on the other hand, is kind of a submit or bust type of guy. But man, his submissions are freaking good. His wrestling's not even great, but man, he does what we call a JV double at our gym, and where he shoots a double, and then if his head, whatever side his head is on, doesn't really matter, but as he's finishing the drop step, he comes over and he hooks his outside leg over the back of their leg and kind of trips him, which you don't really see that at a lot of higher level wrestling. You see it in, kind of that JV type of thing, catch people off balance. But it's not necessarily a derogatory term. You just kind of call it that. But it's really effective. It really is. He does that well. We saw him in his one of his last fights, which was actually impressive. We saw him against Nate Landweller. He got a knee from the clinch. And what was impressive about that is he got the takedown, he got a darce, and he was squeezing on that darce for a good little while. It didn't get it. They scrambled back to their feet, and he still had the cardio, still had the wherewithal, wasn't dying, found a knee in the clinch in kind of a crazy Nate Landweller, and got the win. He's got finishes over Evan Dunham, Nate Landweller, Derek Minner. And again, Derek Minner is people don't think he's a world beater, but for one round, he's very good, and his jiu-jitsu is very good. He won a decision with Ryan Hall and didn't get submitted, and he was submitted in 2.5 minutes by Herbert Burns, by triangle choke. So we had this a couple weeks ago, Uriah Hall and Andre Muniz, and I think this is that type of situation. I think Herbert Burns is going to take Algeo down. Everybody has. Spike took him down. Ramos took him down. Brito took him down. But I think Herbert Burns' jiu-jitsu is just infinitely better than all of those guys. And even if he can't take him down, he's going to slide around to his back. Algeo has not been submitted in a long time. Last time we saw him submitted was against Shane Burgos. But, I think Burns is probably going to be able to backpack him similar to what Muniz did. And again, Algeo is not a finisher. He's not some power guy. I don't think he's going to get up, far enough on the scorecards or, to win a decision. I think Burns will backpack him for at least 2 rounds. Then even if he's dead tired, I don't think he gets finished. He wins 29-28. But realistically, I think Burns inside the distance is a solid play, especially at dog money. Is it risky? Yes. Um, if Herbert Burns gets tired, man, anything can happen. But I think he's good enough at what he does, and I like him here. I like him at plus money. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's a risk I am willing to take. I was crazy last week with Zahabi and Kakramanov, and we won on those two, and I like this one here. Next up, we got Ricky Simone and Jack Shore, and this is another really good freaking fight, man. We have Ricky Simone, he's 19-3. Beat Asuncao, beat Brian Kelleher, beat Peralto, whatever the hell his name is, and he beat Ray Borg. And Borg fight, he was a lot bigger than Ray Borg, and he absolutely just threw him around because he was a lot bigger. But Ray Borg was fighting at 35. He's unbelievably talented. He was just too small there. He lost to Rob Font, lost to Uriah, lost down the line there. Jack Shore, he's 16-0, just beat Valiev. Beat my guy Hunter Azure in a split decision. I think he only has a couple of decisions, in his career. Almost everything else is a finish ahead of that. And we've got Shore, who's 27. We've got Ricky Simone, who is 29. I mean, these guys are really, really good. Simone, he is a horse. That dude is a horse. He has a back the size of 6 cars. And wrestling is good. His cardio is good. He never stops. His striking, I wouldn't say it's clean, but it's effective. He has a really high guard. I mean, holds his hands almost on his forehead or hairline versus cheeks. And he does that because he's a lot shorter than a lot of these guys. So he's got to have a really high guard. He's going to eat some punches on his arm, and sometimes he's got to take one to give one. But he does do a really good job of closing the distance and throwing big, wild, looping punches, especially that overhand over the top, which is what we saw him take a sunset out with. Shore, on the other hand, is a sniper. He is a technician. He is just a solid fighter. Good fight IQ. Beautiful long jab, beautiful fast 1-2, right down the middle. We saw it with Valiev. He took Valiev down. Valiev took him down. Even out in the open, he used his butterfly hooks to elevate, transition, kick his hips out, and get back up. I really like both of these guys. I think we're going to see a very similar fight to the Rob Font fight. I think Shore is going to be able to snipe him on the outside. It's going to be a bigger cage. It's a smaller cage. It is a smaller cage. But I think Shore is going to be able to snipe him. If he does get taken down, I think Shore is going to be able to get back up on top. And I just think he has a better fight IQ. And really just a better, cleaner, technical striking. I think he has a good chin. I don't think he's going to get rocked by Simone's power. I really like him here. I bet you it probably goes the distance. I think over 1.5, over 2.5, or fight goes the distance. And fight goes the distance, that's always hard. Over 2.5, man, is risky, but I think it's doable. I think over 1.5 is a very easy play here. With the odds being Shore's minus 170, Ricky Simone's plus 142. I think it should be that way. I think the only way Shore loses this fight is if Simone can just take him down and hold him for longer than Shore needs to even up the round and do damage. And lately we've been seeing the judges really favor damage over control. And so I think if Shore can get some punches, get some kicks off a little bit, and limit the amount of time he spends on his back or up against the fence, I think it's a solid win against a very tough opponent. Now, again, I mean, it would not surprise me to see Ricky Simone win here. Both are very good. This is a who's getting that push to the top of the division fight. Really, really a solid matchup here. Next up, we've got Punahele Soriano against Dalcha Lungiambula or Lungba something. Dalcha. We've got Punahele, we've got Dalcha. Neither of these guys have a ton of experience. We have Punahele's 8-2, Dalcha's 11-4. Punahele, man, this is one of those weird ones. He's getting better, but he was in the Contender Series at 5-0. He got at the Contender Series, so he made it to the UFC after only 6 fights after he beat Jamie Pickett. He beat Dusko. He beat Oscar Pichota, both by strikes. Beat Jamie Pickett by decision. Lost to Brendan Allen. Lost to Nick Maximov. Again, on the other side, we have Dalcha, who comes from more of a judo background, where Puna comes from a wrestling background. He's 34. He is the most massive human ever. He looks like Zangief off of Street Fighter. He lost to Cody Brundage, lost to Marc-Andre Barriault, beat Marcus Perez. That's kind of his UFC tenure. Really, this one, Puna's a huge favorite. This is one of those fights, though, I don't think I'm going to touch. I think it's going to go over a round and a half. But the issue with both these guys, they get tired. Puna slows down. Dalcha slows down. And it's this isn't who's better. This is who slows down more. And do you want to, I don't know, do you really like to pick a fight over whose cardio is going to be worse going into round two? And I don't know. Man, that's a weird one. I think it's going to be Dalcha's cardio. I think Puna is going to win this. Dalcha is very dangerous in round one. Just heaters. He moves away and just rips those right hook, left hook kind of style punches. It's scary. It is dangerous, but Dalcha has not, I don't think he has finished anybody in the UFC. Nope. Lost. Marcus Perez, decision, lost to Ankalaev. He has. Beat Townsend, left cross to ground and pound back in 19. So, we know he has power. Everybody knows he has power. He swings for the fences. Puna will, when he goes offensively, he will have his hands a little bit lower. He moves really well. He boxes really well, which could be scary. He could get hit with some of those huge punches from Dalcha, but when people do come swinging on him, he will go high guard and kind of control it. Dalcha is, like I said, he has a judo background, but he will shoot blast doubles. I think his blast doubles are going to lose against Puna. I think Puna's hips are too good. His wrestling background is too good. Even if he gets taken down, he's going to pop back up. And then it comes down to whose cardio is worse. I think Puna is just more technical all around. I think Dalcha has got to swing for the fences or get a takedown and just lay and pray to try and beat Puna. And I think Puna is going to be able to just outpoint him. I just don't know. I need to see Puna win a decision. Maximov, I thought he probably beat Brendan Allen. Definitely not. But he's in a weird spot right now because you get guys like Puna who go out there and they swing for the fences and they look phenomenal. But then he starts to realize as he's getting further in his fighting career, hey, I can't just go out there and swing for the fences. I got to temper my movements a little bit so I don't get so tired. But by doing that, he takes away his biggest weapons, which are hurting people while he swings for the fences. And so now he's lost 2 in a row, not swinging for the fences and kind of controlling himself, measuring himself. Does he go out there and try and measure himself? And is he getting better, or does he go back to the old Puna because he doesn't want to go 0-3 and just go swinging and brawl it out? I don't know. I want to see this. I think Puna is very talented. I think he's very good. I think he's a very good boxer. I think his cage movement is good. I think his wrestling is good. I don't know how his fight IQ is yet and how his cardio matches up with his fight IQ. He's lost 2 in a row. Let's see how he looks. Again, if you're just dying to bet this, I think you bet Puna or the over here. But Puna is the A side here. He is the better fighter all around. And this is really just a testament of what Puna do we see coming out of here. And that's really my curiosity. I think Puna wins. I don't know if he gets any money. Next up, we've got Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain. Man, both of these guys are really solid, man. Let me see. We've got Shane Burgos. He's minus 175. Charles Jourdain plus 148. Man, Jourdain looked good in that last fight with Lando Venata, who is always very good, but man, he just looks so emaciated at that weigh-in and leading up to it. If you followed him on Instagram, he looked like Skeletor. I don't know what happened, but I think he looks too thin. When we see people start cutting that much weight, looking that bad. It reminds me of when TJ fought Henry and he just, his skull was like stretched out. It's like, dude, like go eat a freaking hamburger, go up a weight class, F that. Um, that said, Jourdain did what he needed to do. He hurt him, he rocked him, he jumped on him, he choked him. In really spectacular fashion, but it wasn't. If you actually watch that choke, I was really impressed with. Man, he did it, and then actually Royval did it because we're going to talk about Danger Schnell later. Is they actually did just an arm in guillotine, okay? And generally we call it a 5-finger or a high arm, like Marcelo Garcia would grab the wrist and pull it over the top. He actually wasn't doing that. What he did was very, very good. Watch him and then go watch Royval, and it was very similar in the situations. But Jourdain had the neck, and then instead of trying to lock his hands up and go, he had the neck and he was controlling the other wrist. And he was controlling the other wrist so Lando could not grab either of Jourdain's wrists to defend. And then he held it and he held it and he held it. And then at the last, second, he kind of grabbed his own wrist and when he knew it was where it was. And it wasn't like he just rocked him and threw a guillotine on. He rocked him and threw a guillotine, but it was a very, very, very crafty guillotine with some very high level points in there. He throws a lot of kicks, throws a lot of wild shit, a lot of jumping, flying knees, a lot of spinning stuff. Man, Jourdain is a bit of a wild man, but he's not bad. He's really actually clean. His technique is solid. He moves well. He has good cardio, and he's fast. On the other side of that, we have Shane Burgos, and actually Jourdain is 13-4. Guillotine Lando Venata, beat Andre Ewell, lost to Erosa, beat Marcelo Rojo. So there's a couple of his last, and he beat Choi. He beat Du Ho Choi back in the day. Burgos 14-3. He just beat Billy Q. I thought he was losing that first round, and then he just found his freaking mark. Lost to Edson Barbosa in the weirdest knockout I've ever seen in my life. Lost a decision to Emmett. Knocked out Americani in the third. That Cub Swanson fight, it was a split decision. I really liked him there. I thought he was doing really well. I really thought he won that. I don't think it should have been a split decision. And then in an absolute barn burner, he lost to Calvin Kattar. And so, I mean, you just look at the level right here, and he is fighting good people. One of the few people to finish Charles Rosa. He's losing to Kattar, Emmett, and Barbosa. And what he does so well is, I mean, of course, his head movement and his boxing are phenomenal. He reads his opponent so well. It does not look like he is pre-planning anything. He jabs. He's got a freaking beautiful jab. And then he is leaning and trying to find a read. And then he might fire a right hand. He loves his rear uppercut. He loves a jab. He loves that rear uppercut. But then he'll throw kicks as well. And it's not like they're pre-planned 1, 2, 3 up top, low kick. He's seeing stuff. He's seeing a read. He's seeing where his opponent's weight is. He's seeing his opponent moving backwards. Are they moving forward? And you usually see him have a little bit of a tough time in the first half of the first round or even the first round. And I don't think it's that he's having actually as much of a tough time as he needs to. I think it's almost like Peter Yan. I think he's finding the rhythm. He's finding the read. And then once he does, he starts to come on a little bit. I like Burgos here, man. I like Burgos. I think he is a guy that we can see back in. I think he was in the top 10 at one point, maybe 9. I think I saw seeing. I would not be surprised to see him inch his way back in there. Again, man, he looked great against Billy Q, who we know is going to pressure the hell out of you. Pass out with flying colors. He's got the power. He's got the rhythm. The only thing I would say is early, he will get hit a little bit while he's trying to figure things out, and his volume can be a little bit low sometimes. I don't think that that's going to hurt him too badly here, but I like him. I think he's phenomenal. I think the odds being what they are fair, but I think at minus 175, I think that's a good take. I don't know if I'd call it a steal, but I think it's a good dollar amount. All right, moving along, we've got Matt Schnell, Mudaerji. Gosh, man, these names just keep getting harder and harder. You guys know, I've said this before. I love Schnell. I know him, a little bit. We're not like close friends, but he's come up, helped Henry out for camp before. I think he's good. I think his striking is really good. I think his striking is underrated. We saw him hurt Brandon Royval, in their last fight, ran right into stuff. man, I like Schnell. My issue with Schnell is he goes from camp to camp to camp. I don't know if Matt knows what he wants. I don't know if Matt knows how he's going to fight. I don't know. You kind of just don't know which Matt Schnell you're going to get. I love his reads. He's always moving left and right and kind of seeing stuff in these little micro angles. Um, we've said it before, but if the fight doesn't come to him, sometimes he will just stare and stare and stare for too long. He's got good jiu-jitsu, offensive jiu-jitsu. We saw him get tapped really quickly with Royval the other day. And again, almost the exact same way that Charles Jourdain set it up. I mean, it's just a beautiful setup into that high arm guillotine. And I think Royval might even finish it one hand. I forget, but just beautiful. Go back and watch those two setups, man. If you guys are jiu-jitsu people out there, and you're going to see just a really crafty setup that on first watch, I thought was just a neck, high arm guillotine. And then after watching it for this, actually, I realized, whoa, those were actually a lot different than I thought they were. I like Schnell. I think his striking is great. He is not afraid to get into a firefight, but sometimes he lunges in. And with his weird, I wouldn't call it weird, I would call it kind of like stalking, calculating movement. As he's moving his head side to side, he tends to get hit a lot more than he should. And sometimes he'll fire just a little bit too quickly in a firefight when he's not always safe, and then he gets clipped with it, all right? His wrestling is not to die for, but again, he can scramble well. On the other side of that, we've got Mudaerji, 16-4. He's at ATT right now. He lost his first fight to Louis Smolka by armbar. And that was a really solid fight. I remember that, and I didn't even watch tape on it here, but I remember Louis Smolka having to dig deep and find that. And then he's won 3 in a row. Won a decision over Adeshev, which honestly he should have put away because I'm really not big on Adeshev. Beat Malcolm Gordon, beat Andre Sukhentau. He's tall, he's skinny, he's fast. He's really fast. He moves out of the way well. I believe he is a southpaw. He fires that jab long. He is very active and active and active. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. He loves to flick that jab, pull himself out. Hopefully that person, the opponent, will counter, and then he'll fire back. Fires the jab, pulls out. Fires the jab, pulls out. He's using that jab as a feeler, and he really wants people to engage. He's tall for the division, and that jab really allows him to stay a little bit further away, but he'll lean in just slightly, and people think he's a little bit closer. And with Schnell's willingness to return and counter, I would not be surprised to see Mudaerji fire. We see Danger fire back, but being slightly out of range with his reach, and then get countered again. I like Mudaerji here, and I think they gave him the right fight with Matt Schnell, because Schnell is going to strike with him. And I think they wanted a guy who's going to strike with Mudaerji. They really want to build the Chinese audience, the Chinese fighters. But they're not giving him a wrestler. They're not giving him some guy that's just going to blast double him and hold him down. I mean, Schnell could win. Schnell could find some punches in there. He could also find a submission somewhere if it goes to the ground. But I think for it to go to the ground, Matt has got to get it to the ground. I'm not sure that he's willing to engage it into a ground contest. And if he does, I'm not sure he has the wrestling chops to really get it to the ground. That said, I think Matt is just so inconsistent. I think he could absolutely win this fight. I think he's very talented. I just don't think you can bet the inconsistency. So I think you got to bet Mudaerji, or you don't bet this fight. And I think the volume of Mudaerji is going to be enough to get the job done. And at minus 290, Schnell's a plus 220. I wouldn't call it a trap line, but it's definitely that line that we see. We see a guy like Schnell who is very good. We saw, again, last week with Michael Johnson. We see these guys. They're very good. They just have such bad performances so often that you can't bet on them. They're just so inconsistent. And I think the UFC is kind of pushing them, using their name to kind of leapfrog some of these guys like Jamie Malarkey. Okay, he beat Michael Johnson, so that's a good win. And now that lets him move up. Mudaerji beat Matt Schnell. guy who's been in the division a long time, that allows him to move up. I think I like him here, but Mudaerji, but man, I wouldn't go crazy on that one. I wouldn't go crazy. Next up, we've got Jingliang and Muslim. Gosh, I don't have my glasses on, and so this Salikhov, so it's hard for me to read. And I have glasses, but I can't wear them on the film because then they reflect, and that looks weird. And I can't wear contacts because it takes me like 40 minutes to get each one in each eye, and then they feel like my eyes are being ripped out of my face. So that doesn't work. And one of these days, maybe I'll get PRK, but I don't know. Seems like a lot of effort. But we've got Jingliang. He's 18-7, and we have Muslim Salikhov, who is 18-2. Let me pull up the odds on this. Jingliang is plus 143, and we have Muslim as minus 175. These guys are both orthodox, so look for Muslim to throw a lot of spinning back kicks. He does this and first of all, these guys are both kind of counter punchers. Jingliang wants to draw people in to hit with a check hook right hand, or he'll go right hand check hook. That's almost exclusively what he does. We'll get more into him in a second. Muslim, he likes to kind of draw people in. He doesn't do a lot and tries to lull people. And then when they start to attack and then exit, especially when his opponent is circling to Muslim's left, so the opponent's right, if they're in Muslim's left, he likes to throw that spinning kick to the body, and he does that quite a bit. He actually really does. Against southpaws, he uses right leg for the most part. Against orthodox people, he uses his what would that be? I guess it would be his right leg, but he spins it the opposite direction. So he'll go spinning wheel kick, and then he'll go spinning side kick, to the liver. And his hands aren't great, but he'll throw a little bit. He definitely likes those kicks. Both of these guys have low output, and they like to draw their opponents in. We saw it with Ponzinibbio with Jingliang. He's got this really off rhythm cadence, and I actually like the way that Jingliang's striking has come along in ways over the last few years, few fights. He still has that weird off-rhythm cadence, and he lets his lead hand kind of dangle out there, but he floats effortlessly left and right. He really does glide in and out well, and he really draws people in well with this weird kind of hand movement that makes you kind of question, is he in range? Is he out of range? Is he close to me? Is he not close to me? And that really messes with people. And then what happens, people get antsy, and we saw it with Ponzinibbio. When stuff isn't happening, most fighters are like, oh my gosh, I have to make something happen. I'm losing. They don't always think, this fight is slow. It's half of it's on him, half of it's on me. And that's what Jingliang does well, is he kind of lulls you and you don't know, is something happening? Is it not? And then people kind of rush in, they force themselves in. And I think his best punch is that little check hook that he does. He will do it offensively. He will lead with it. But he doesn't fire it like he's trying to knock somebody out. He almost just, it's my right hand, but he almost kind of turns it over as he goes, almost like a jab, but he clips it from the side. And he does that offensively and defensively, and then he'll regularly fire right hand, but sometimes he will lead with his right. It's almost entirely hook cross or cross hook. That's, 85, 90% of his attacks right there. But he does a really good job doing those things. He defends takedowns well. He does the right stuff. He gets back to his feet. When we saw him against Chimaev, but that's freaking Chimaev. So what do you do there? Against Muslim's a little bit older, and he's a little inactive. I like Jingliang here as a dog. I think he's smart. I think he is, this is one of those things, again, who can lull the other one into coming forward so the counter puncher can create their counter. And I think all things said, one, the age of Muslim is it's a little old. So that chin can be tested a little bit. Muslim is going to counter with kicks, and he's going to counter to the body, and he's going to fire more kicks. All things said, if Jingliang lands, 10 punches and Muslim lands 10 kicks, I think the judges are going to score punches greater than they are kicks, especially spinning kicks to the body. I think with all else, I trust the younger guy's chin. I trust Jingliang's fight IQ. and I trust hands over feet when when they're not knocking people out left and right. I lean Jingling Li here, but I think Muslim is tough. He's good. He's 18-2 for a reason. But I think Jingling Li is kind of a disrespected dog here. I think he's better. I think the line should be a little bit closer, and I like him here for the win. Next up, we're moving along. 45 minutes is going to be like the fastest ever. We've got Michelle Waterson and Amanda Lemos. I need to watch more tape on this because I do want to talk it off the top of, or talk about it. I will most likely have this on the Patreon and Discord as one of my love 'em and like 'em picks, depending on the details. But I love Lemos. You guys should know that by now. I love her physicality. I love her striking. I love her jab. She did have a lot of problems with Angie Hill, but Angie kind of gives everybody problems with her movement. Michelle Waterson kind of moves, not like Angie Hill, but a lot. She moves a lot. I don't think it's going to give her the same problems. Both these girls are older. I think Waterson is 36 and Lemos is 35. I think I love Lemos here. She is one of my favorite female fighters. I love her power. I love her aggressiveness. I love that freaking jab. I think I love her here. I'll definitely look at some more film and see what I do in terms of love 'em and like 'em picks for you guys. But she's minus 350. Lemos is. Waterson's plus 260. I didn't even look at the odds. That's kind of where I don't know if that I expected her not to, but in my head, that's what I would be thinking. The odds should be, and I tell you guys this all the time. I don't look at the odds until I watch film because I don't want to look at film thinking, oh, this person is supposed to lose or oh, this person is supposed to win, because I feel like that kind of messes with my own thought process. So I watch film. I think who's going to win by a lot, by a little, this, that, and then I go look at the odds. And that's actually why last week, why I had Zahabi and Kakramanov winning. I watched the film first and I was like, man, I thought Zahabi was going to be the favorite in that fight. I just was like, yeah, Zahabi's going to be minus 150, minus 180, something like that. And then seeing him as a dog, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to take it. Same with Kakramanov. I thought he was just his skill set matched up so well against Ronnie Lawrence's that I couldn't believe that, we're getting them at dog money. So that's why I do that. And now, I mean, honestly, now let's get into the main event. We've got Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. This is one of the better fight night main events. Last week we had a phenomenal one with RDA and Fiziev. I mean, that was just gorgeous display. Fiziev passed all the tests, looked amazing, defended the takedowns. Gosh, he is on his way to, the top of that division. Fast, dynamic, beautiful arrangement of kicks and punches, striking, good defense, good fight IQ, good cardio. Man, I cannot say enough about him. But in front of us, we've got Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez. Before I get into this, you guys, please, like us, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff. Really means a lot. We're getting a lot more subscribers. And that's because you guys are sharing our stuff, and I really, really appreciate it. Brandon over in Austria doing Austrian things right now, I'm sure actually, he might not appreciate it. Boo to Brandon. Leave some comments. Like, Brandon, you could, show us a little appreciation over here. So yeah, please, if you could like the video, subscribe to our channel. We love you guys. Comment in the bottom. You guys do, for the most part, all of our comments are pretty clean as well. I wouldn't say necessarily positivity, but I don't like negativity. I think there's so much negativity all the time that I don't like to get into pissing contests or fights or be in cunty over comments on YouTube. There's too much real life to deal with than to be stupid over the internet. So I think it's fun. I think we have a really good community. Even when you guys don't agree with us and you guys are dogging us a little bit, I think it's pretty clean. I think it's pretty respectful. So I appreciate that. I think we have a fun community here. Brian Ortega is 15-2. He just fought for the title. Now, I have a thing here, and I got to tell you guys, I love Brian. He's engaged to Tracy Cortez, who, of course, I've trained since she was an amateur. Brian I've spent a lot of time with him. He cooks my, before his, Tracy's last fight here, he's cooking carne asada for my wife and kids. So, he's close to us. That said, there's a weird thing, and I've always seen a pattern. Go back and look, you guys. Not always, but there's this weird fight for the title curse. And generally, when people fight for the title and lose, they lose their next fight back. Go look at all of the people in all of the divisions and see who has lost, and then look at their next fight. And almost always it's a loss, or I won't even say almost always, but very more so than not. I have a theory behind it, whether it is or isn't true. I think people think, well, I just fought for the title, and anything below that, I'm good. And I don't know if it people actually think that, or if it's training or what, but that generally happens. I see that so often. Hopefully Brian can break that weird curse, but that is a thing. On the other side of that, we have Yair, the least active human in all of MMA. I mean, this dude is like barely fighting. I don't know if it was injuries or what, but 2018, I mean, he went pretty much a year between 2018 and 2019 without a fight. Then he fought Jeremy Stevens. And then he went 2019 to 2021, pretty much 2 years before he fought Max. He basically refused to fight Zabit. He would not do that. And then the other Max fight got canceled because of Max, but just kind of a weird thing. He put on a gorgeous display of striking after 2 years off in the inactivity that he had against Max. His kicks are freaking something for the ages. His movement is great. His cardio is great. You gotta love Yair. You've got to freaking love Yair. On the other side of that, we have Brian Ortega, who gave Volkanovski I don't know if I'd call it his toughest fight, maybe his toughest fight, but definitely the toughest round he's had with those submission threats. Let me look at the odds on this one. Ortega's a favorite. He's minus 170. He's minus 170 for a reason. And that reason is he's tough as nails and he finds a way to win. I always talk about that, man. Like, you don't always have to be better than your opponent. You just have to find a way to win. And that is a characteristic. Cardio and finding a way to win are just two of the best things, just two of the best attributes you can have in the MMA game. And Ortega has both. He is going to face some massive, massive, massive adversity in this fight. But I would not be surprised to see him find an elbow or a knee in the clinch like we've seen before, or find Yair's neck, whether it's a rear naked choke or a guillotine, somewhere along the process. His striking has definitely gotten a lot better over the last few years since we've seen him kind of grow up in the UFC. He's southpaw for the most part. I mean, he used to be a lot more orthodox, and now he's been fighting a lot more southpaw lately. I think that helps create distance, being opposite stance. So I think if you don't want to engage, if somebody's really going to throw a lot at you, being at a longer range is better. So it forces them to kind of come in, commit a little bit more, and then you can either counter, or that allows you to get the clinch as people are kind of rushing in. I don't like main events. I don't like betting main events. I like Ortega for the win here. I've got to qualify that with, I'm close with him, close with Tracy. So of course, just full disclaimer, I never want you guys to be like, oh, Santino said this and this and that, and then you find out I know somebody or don't like somebody. So I want to be clear on that. It's not like Brian trains with me or trains with us, but on a personal level, I do know him. I actually really hope he wins. I hope he gets back up there at the top of the division. And yeah, I think at the odds, I think they're good. At what did I say? Minus 170, you guys? Yep, minus 170. So that is the card, man. That is it. 54 minutes talking by myself. If you guys knew how difficult that was, man, I mean, I love talking. I love hearing myself, but it's weird doing it in front of a video camera going, what the hell am I mumbling on about over here for 54 minutes? So anyway, you guys, check out the Discord, check out the Patreon. link in the show notes. Check out my book. Hopefully you guys are killing the game on your bets. We'll put up some different bets. Brandon's been loving the round props and different round spreads and things like that. Bet Online has those. A couple other books have them. Brandon will throw those up on the Patreon later this week, and I will see you guys later. Hopefully, I'm able to do a video next week. Kind of depends on the London situation. I will definitely have my picks up on the Patreon. Watch my boy JP Pierce go beat up somebody in London at the O2 Arena, which should be a lot of fun. The travel sucks. UFC does not fly us first class. They don't fly us business class. I actually got on there today on the United flight and switched my flight because they had me in a middle seat from on my return flight from London to San Francisco. It was like a 10, 11-hour flight, and they had me in a middle seat. And I was like, no, not today, Satan. I'm not sitting next to two sweaty, disgusting, fat people. I'll do one. I'm not doing two. See you guys next time.